There are coincidences, and then there are coincidences. Odd cases that give you that brief thought in the back of your mind that maybe we're living in some strange matrix-like simulation or something. Have you experienced this phenomenon with any TV shows not on this list? Let me know in the comments. I'm your host James, and these are the top 10 scary times TV shows predicted the future. We're starting off this list with the Lone Gunmen. This 2001 spin-off of The X-Files was short-lived and nowhere near as successful as its predecessor. Mostly remembered now for its very first episode entitled Pilot, oddly enough. Here our trio attempts to unravel a government conspiracy and thwart a plan that involves flying a plane into the World Trade Center with the intention of sending the US population into a panic with the hopes of increasing arms sales in the country. Now, hearing a description like that, you'd probably think this episode was written after the events of September 11th, but this episode came out before, in March of 2001, just 6 months before the Twin Towers were attacked in real life. It's hard to believe that this was a coincidence. It's very eerie that there's a plane involved, that the show aired the same year as the real life events unfolded. Eesh. Spooks. This British spy drama has become pretty famous for its season 4 premiere episodes, the special parts 1 and 2. In these 2 episodes, the team works to prevent a series of terror attacks in the underground subway system being carried out by a group called Shining Dawn. Now, the episode aired in September of 2005, just 2 months after the 7/7 bombings took place. Even though the episodes aired after these attacks, it was filmed well before. There are references to King's Cross Station in the episode, one of the stations that was attacked 2 months prior, and unfortunately, unlike in the TV show, these 7/7 attacks took the lives of 52 people and injured 700 others. The events taking place in these premiere episodes were so similar that staff at BBC actually debated not airing the episodes. They did end up airing them though, adding trigger warnings to the beginning of each part. Next up we have Family Guy. There have been a few creepy instances where things featured in Family Guy ended up playing out in real life. Not quite on the same level as The Simpsons, but relatively close. This next one is related to Kevin Spacey though. Yeah, I remember him. And the 2005 episode Don't Make Me Over, we cut to Brian and Stewie in a shopping mall. Brian agrees to give Stewie $8 if he does something. We cut to Stewie running through the mall naked, saying he's escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement. Funny prank, but very different looking at it with the context we have now. I'm willing to bet most people watching this episode at the time didn't really think much of this joke. It's not like it's even all that funny or anything, but it makes me wonder if there were some inside info floating around about Kevin that just wasn't known to the public yet and just kind of whispered about in Hollywood, and that this was almost kind of an inside joke of sorts. Kevin Spacey is a pretty random actor to throw into a joke like that unless there was some speculation going on, but who knows? Could have been a total coincidence. Next on the list we have The Simpsons. Nothing in particular here, just in general. We could make an entire list and have made an entire list dedicated to Simpsons predictions alone. This show is famous for a lot of things, and predicting the future is also one of them. There's a huge list of strange things that have happened in this cartoon, bear an uncanny resemblance to real life events that would come later. One notable example is of course the episode where originally airing in 2000, it's kind of a glimpse into the future. It shows Lisa becoming the president of the United States, succeeding a fictionalized version of Donald Trump. And then this prediction came true, of course, 2016 when Donald Trump was elected as the president of the United States, followed by the inauguration of Kamala Harris as the first female vice president in 2021. Another Simpsons prediction is the horsemeat episode. There's the episode with the giant bees. They've had smartwatches in an episode long before they came out. The list goes on and on. Next up on the list we have Friends predicting Facebook. In this 2003 episode, the one with the memorial service, Ross sits with his laptop showing Chandler a new website for college alumni to interact on. Now, there were websites like MySpace that were around at this time. Anyone here old enough to have had a MySpace account. I can't even remember what I did on there. I think that you could have like music and stuff, and like, man, that is a distant memory. Anyway, it's not like social media was not a thing entirely at this point, but the way Ross describes the website, it sounds kind of similar to Facebook in a couple different ways, which would actually be launched just a year after this episode aired. Ross explains that you can post messages for people and let everyone know what you're up to, and the fact that it was just for college alumni is also similar to Facebook, as when it first launched, it was strictly for Harvard students. Number 5, The Chris Rock Show. In one particular sketch, the show tackled the infamous O.J. Simpson trial, which had captivated the nation in the mid-90s. During the sketch, Chris Rock held up a fictional book called I Didn't Kill My Wife, but if I did, here's how I'd do it. Supposedly written by O.J. Simpson. The idea of Simpson releasing a book that speculated on how he would have committed the act was absolutely absurd at the time. Fast forward to 2007 though, and O.J. Simpson did indeed release a book with a very similar title called If I Did It. While the book was initially shelved due to like just public outrage, it was eventually published, and Simpson's account of how it could have been committed garnered significant media attention. The fact that the Chris Rock Show had parodied such a specific concept years before actual publication, pretty wild. And man, what a title. Did OJ just see this bit and then go, you know what? That seems like I should actually write that. There's also rumors though that he didn't actually write the book himself and just accepted money from the publisher to say that he did, so yeah, you never know. Next up, we have Season 5, Episode 4 of Supernatural, which aired in 2009 and happens to bear some pretty surprising similarities to a certain real-life global pandemic that broke out 11 years later. In this episode, Dean finds himself 5 years into the future where the Croatoan virus, yes, the Croatoan virus, has decimated the world. Luckily, the real didn't turn people into violent zombie-like monsters, at least not everyone. But when it's revealed that public assembly has been shut down, that sports are no longer running, it feels a lot more close to home watching it now, especially a scene where a character named Chuck tells Dean how much of a precious commodity toilet paper has become, telling him to hoard it. You know what though? Supernatural was a pretty popular show. I'm willing to bet a lot of people watched this episode, and when everything kicked off in 2020, that little scene popped up in people's brains and they were like, toilet paper, hoard it, hoard it. Number 3, Person of Interest. Person of Interest was a sci-fi crime drama that aired from 2011 to 2016. While the show primarily focused on the use of artificial intelligence and surveillance systems to predict and prevent crimes, it made a pretty eerily accurate prediction about a real-life whistleblower case. In the show's second season, which aired in 2012, an episode titled No Good Deed introduced a character named Henry Peck, a government analyst who discovers the existence of a massive surveillance program targeting US citizens. The storyline closely mirrors the real-life case of Edward Snowden, who gained international attention in 2013 for leaking classified documents exposing the surveillance activities of the National Security Agency. Again, this is another weird case where a fictional episode of a TV show came out within 1 year of a very similar real-life event taking place. Really strange. And number 2, we have Star Trek, one of my favorite franchises of all time. Now, when it comes to Trek, a lot of the things people reference when it comes to future predictions and stuff like that are the technology the series proposed. Technology in Star Trek was more of an influence on real-life technology, not a highly coincidental similarity. There is one instance where real life imitated Star Trek in a much more surprising way though. In the season 1 episode Tomorrow is Yesterday, airing in 1967, the Enterprise is thrown back in time to the late 1960s. And at one point, Uhura picks up a news broadcast announcing that the launch of this historic moon landing will be taking place on the following Wednesday, and the real-life moon landing also happened on a Wednesday. And not only did the rocket take off, but the rocket took off from the same place that it did in this Star Trek episode, Cape Kennedy. It's not explicitly stated in the episode the exact year they traveled back to, but according to some fans, there are signs that the crew had traveled back to 1969. So if that is the case, even the year lined up. Number 1, Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In. This sketch comedy series aired from 1968 to 73 and was known for its quick-paced humor, political satire. In one episode, the show made a surprisingly accurate prediction about a rather significant event in world history, the fall of the Berlin Wall. During a segment called News of the Future, the show's host humorously predicted the wall's collapse, stating that there was dancing in the streets and singing as the wall had finally fallen, but that it had been replaced with a moat full of alligators. Now, the alligator part thankfully never came true, but this sketch came out in 1969. This was a time when the wall stood as this physical and very symbolic division between East and West Germany, seemingly impenetrable, and there were absolutely no signs the wall was going anywhere. However, as we all know, the Berlin Wall was indeed torn down on November 9th, 1989, and the even crazier part is that this show's 1969 episode actually predicted the fall of the Berlin Wall down to the very year. Yes, this future news segment was supposedly coming from 1989, and yeah, that is quite the coincidence. With all that said though, I've been your host James, and I'll catch you, yes you specifically, in the next video.